Hey guys, this is gonna be kind of short because I have a concert to get to. Waited too long. But I go to Lucy Addison on Thursdays, and this past Thursday I went and finally got placed. I've been put in a history class, which was surprising to me. But you know, that's fun because I like history. 7th grade kids, and I'm not working with one specific kid, which is fine. I like classes of kids too, because then you get to see the community aspect of how these kids are interacting with each other. So I get there, and I walk in, and the class is already halfway done. So the teacher introduced me and warned them that they should demonstrate Lucy Addison pride. And I was just instantly reminded of this teacher that I used to have in 7th grade myself. Her name was Miss York, and she was the living worst. She was terrible. And she would always tell us, "You need to have A.G. Wright pride. You're not acting in A.G. Wright spirit." And I never understood that because where I was going to school didn't really matter terribly much to me. But apparently it works for these kids because they were just like, "Oh yes, well, absolutely." And so he showed me to my seat, and I got to sit in his chair, which was a rolly chair, and very exciting because I'm 5 years old at heart. And so I sat down, and I expected there to be a period where I would actually get to talk to the kids, but there wasn't. What ended up happening was they were talking about Jim Crow laws and segregation in the United States and what that meant for African Americans, and most of the kids in the class were African American, and there seemed to be quite a bit of dispute over whether or not there was still an issue with race. And I was, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, we learned about this in education class. Ha, fun. But he had them open up these workbooks that they weren't allowed to write in because they were class copies and they didn't have their own copies to work in. And he had them turn to a certain page and, you know, start doing focus questions to help them to understand what they were learning. Basically just having them copy down what was on the board. I'm sitting in my chair thinking, maybe not the way I would have done it, but it's effective and it gets the job done and it does what it needs to do. So I'm sitting in the front of the class watching these kids working and watching how they're like jostling each other around and copying each other's answers, and this teacher is doing nothing about it. And he made it pretty clear that I was just supposed to sit and observe today, or Thursday, and so I just, I had to keep to myself. But there was this kid in front of me who was at the very front of the class. He was very loud when he said, "I can't find the page number." Several times he says this, and the teacher comes back to the front, passes him by, and does nothing about it. He passes him like twice. And meanwhile, this kid seems to be giving up on his work. He eventually just laid down on the table, so I got up, and I noticed Mr. Long was looking at me about this, but I talked to him afterwards, and it was okay. He didn't mention the fact that he had obviously heard the kid and still wasn't helping, but he thanked me for helping him, so maybe that was the point. But I helped him find the page number, and helped him get a clean sheet of paper, and that was nice. It was nice to be talking to a kid and actually, not just sitting there watching them learn about segregation, which as one of the, I don't know. And then the second class came in halfway through my time, and they were even louder than the first class. He keeps a point system in the corner of his room about which row, A, B, C, or D, everybody is being quieter, and he gives them rewards based off of that. Like, the quietest row gets to leave first at the end of class. You're more likely to be allowed to go first in the bathroom line. And oh my gosh, I totally forgot middle schoolers do this, but there was somebody asking to go to the bathroom every 10 seconds. The bathroom line was once up to like 7 or 8 kids, and there were only like 15 of them in the room in the second class, which I thought was so funny because there's no way that all of them had to be that bad. So there's that. But anyway, he keeps a point system in the room, and at the end of the day, however many points each one of the rows has, he determines which row won for the day, and I'm assuming there's some sort of prize for that, rather than just the prize of knowing that you are quieter than your peers. I don't know. But so the second class was full of kids that did not want to pay attention. And they obviously knew what they were talking about, because when he would call on them, which was rare, which I was not super fond of, because it kind of gave them an opportunity to distract themselves and not really take in the information in a comprehensive way, in my opinion. But when he would call on them, they knew what they were talking about. They weren't just spitting back facts up on the board, which was encouraging to me, but I would have liked to see them a little bit more involved. Hold up. Sorry, my roommate just came home. So we get through the second class, and I'm getting up to leave, and he asked me if I was coming back tomorrow. I was like, no, I'm coming back next week. And, you know, I asked him if I was going to be a little bit more hands-on next week, or this coming week, I suppose. And he said yes. He hoped so. But as I was leaving, one of the girls from the second class had stayed behind, and she came up to me and says, so are you going to be teaching the class now? And I had to be like, no, that's Mr. Long's job. I'm not qualified for that. And she gives me this extremely disappointed look, like I had come in to usurp her teacher, and she's like, oh, that's too bad. Okay. So all in all, I think what I've learned from this one experience in this class is that while I don't agree with really anything that Mr. Long is doing, he's not a very hands-on teacher. He's a hands-off teacher, and I don't agree with that personally, but it seems to be working for the kids decently, even if they're not focused at all during the class. So I might actually start taking notes in this class just to keep track of what I would change if I ever get into a situation where the kids are reacting that way, because there is some stuff that really stood out to me, and I can't remember what it is explicitly now. Actually, as soon as I left the classroom, I was like, dang it, I forgot. But I definitely don't approve of that style of teaching. Whoops. And hopefully next time I'll be able to actually talk with the kids rather than just sit and watch them work in workbooks, because even though that's something that a lot of classrooms do, I don't feel like that's really educational for me to be sitting and learning things that I learned in 7th grade, because I can't actually interact with the kids. So at the very least, next time I'm going to try and make an effort to work out with the teacher, being able to walk around and assist the kids that need assisting. So that was Thursday. Hopefully this next week will prove that first impressions are in fact not always the best. I don't have a lot of hope for that though, so fingers crossed.